Hello, my sinners. Welcome back. We will be starting a new fic today entitled Shouta Aizawa is Caught Horribly Unprepared by HallowedBlock07. As always, my sinners, the link for this fic is down in the description, and let's get into this. Summary. Shouta Aizawa was a lot of things, but unprepared was not one of them. Sure, he could be grumpy and cold, usually when bothered unnecessarily by his students or colleagues, or when his access to coffee seemed to vanish, and he was left to cope without caffeine filling his every function. Sure, he could be soft, but only when knelt down in alleyways, opening small cans of cat food for the local stray population, to have something safe to eat, or for his husband in the cozy, intimate confinements of their home, when he could bask in the knowledge of just being there and existing with the sunshine. And sure, he could be pessimistic, or so he adamantly referred to it, realistic. It was his natural state of not to hope for nor expect the best outcome, as nothing ever seemed to go right for him. But the one thing Shouta Aizawa was unprepared. Or, Shouta Aizawa is turned into a cat by a stray quirk and has to figure out how to get back home while trying to protect the bullied quirkless kid he's totally not adopting. Inspired by Cats and Coffee by Silver Mist Anime Lover. Chapter 1. Blame all of it on the child. Summary. And so it begins. Aizawa gets shouldered and kisses the floor. Shouta Aizawa was a lot of things, but unprepared was not one of them. Sure, he could be grumpy and cold, usually when bothered unnecessarily by his students or colleagues, or when his access to coffee seemed to vanish, and he was left to cope without caffeine filling his every function. Sure, he could be a little soft, but only when knelt down in alleyways, opening small cans of cat food for the local stray population to have something safe to eat, or for his husband in their cozy, intimate confinements of their home, when he could bask in the acknowledgement of just being there and existing with the sunshine. And sure, he could be a little pessimistic, or as he so adamantly referred to it, realistic. It was his natural state of being not too hopeful nor expectant of the best outcome, as nothing ever seemed to go right for him. But the one thing Shouta Aizawa was unprepared. He had contingency plans for his contingency plans, mind methodically cycling through various possibilities and increasingly impossible outcomes in order to prepare, to not be caught off guard, if he could help it. Of course, that didn't always work, but whether by fate or chance or pure luck, he hadn't had to experience anything he couldn't entirely project nor plan for some degree, until one fateful Monday morning, the start of a new year, a fresh batch of hero students he was stuck to teach, all arrogant little shits, though only Hisashi would ever hear him insult the children because apparently it was rude to be honest about children's characters, who were all quirk and no sense. They would never last their first years of heroes if they couldn't shake their arrogant attitudes. And it wasn't like Aizawa didn't give them a chance to prove themselves, though the odds had been stacked against their favor from that morning when it painfully struck him that their coffee had ran out last night when he had stumbled back into their home at 5 o'clock in the morning, half out of it, and chugged the entire pot of coffee before passing out beside his husband. Aizawa gave them a stern once-over when they eventually settled down at the start of homeroom, and bit back a sigh when they were late coming out of the changing rooms. He had only expelled perhaps a majority of the class when they refused to take his application test seriously, and the remaining students when he had heard them throwing quirkish slurs around on their way back to the classroom after passing 1B. They had been given 2 chances, 3 depending on how you counted the 3 chances, Aizawa had so graciously bestowed them with, and still failed to live up to the bar which he had set, while not to the ground, was pretty low, and would increase throughout the year. If they couldn't prove themselves now, they wouldn't prove themselves then, and that would be an illogical waste of time to teach, which his colleagues didn't seem to quite grasp, alluding his quick temper to his lack of caffeine, since the staff room also had no coffee, and there must be some prologist hunting him and making him miserable by removing all access to coffee from him. What had he done to deserve such torture? What sins would warrant such a cruelty? His colleagues may not have been far off, after all, in their assumptions, though Aizawa would rather be caught dead than admit that aloud. He sighed, allowing all the stress of the morning to slip off his shoulders. He reached into his pocket, fingers fishing around only to pull keys attached to a black Mancoon cat key charm, and dropped it beside Hizashi's hunched form, likely working on some last-minute lesson plans before the start of the year, while his homeroom sat in a welcoming ceremony. "I'm heading home early, Zashi. I'm going through withdrawal and won't get any work done today. Not that I really need to." His husband laughed, moving the keys further onto his desk and lightening Aizawa's chest just a little bit more at the sound. "Go get some coffee in your veins, and go devise some more schemes to expel the entirety of the next school year's show." Sashi grinned at him, eyes mostly hidden by his colored sunglasses, but he knew he'd see a teasing look under them if they were moved. "I don't conspire against them. They just weren't up to stiff." He shrugged, making his way out of the staff room and along the corridors of UA, his mind eye tempting him with a perfect coffee, wisps of steam curling upwards from the rich dark surface, bitter but cruel by the faint twist of sweeter along his tongue. He'd almost taste it. Aizawa practically floated along the streets of Musutafu, drawn to his veins like a cartoon to an animated pie on the window-sill, though to everyone who passed by him, they simply saw a homeless-looking man, seemingly bearing a glare and a grin on his face at the same time, looking oddly murderously and gleeful. One particular nosy passer-by thought to themselves he'd either conspired in trying to hide it miserably, or about to murder someone and is failing miserably to hide it. Neither were true, but the civilian would continue their day believing that to be true. Eventually, Aizawa stood outside a small cafe, wind drifting past, picking up his dark locks as he inhaled the godly aroma that was already waking him up a little bit more by the scent alone. He took a small sip of his entheobic drink and practically unraveled at the sensation of the warm coffee igniting his body with warmth within. And that's when everything began to fall apart. Something within the wind shuddered, foreboding, and Aizawa felt it immediately. The change in atmosphere, something he could intend with ease, thanks to decades of experience under his belt. Yet nothing in the immediate vicinity screamed danger at him. A child, no more than 5, ran past him, shoulder ramming into his leg, and a fury of apologies as he continued running. From what? Aizawa would probably never know, because the moment he moved to check on the kid, because he wasn't entirely heartless, especially with kids. It was students he was harsh to, thank you very much. Everything began to spin. Buildings blurred and elongated his vision. Colors blended and contorted. His coffee slipped from his fingers, and Aizawa mentally cursed every fathom of God he could remember while his brain melted, vision going blurry. His last conscious thought before he kissed the concrete was, Somehow, this was worth a single sip of coffee. That was the end of chapter 1 of Shouta Aizawa is caught horribly unprepared. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see y'all next time.